to What the Heck's, your source for Warhammer Underworlds and under 30 new friends and memories made at Nova. I'm your host, Brian, and with me today is the intrepid adventurers I'll be interviewing. Phil, how are you doing this morning?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Been a long week since we've been back, but it's good.
Well, it's good to have you guys back. I'm so jealous I couldn't go. And the one who couldn't contribute to the driving, Skylar, how are you doing?
Still lacking the ability to drive stick shift.
Same here.
Not being able to contribute to a long ride like that, I'm just like, I don't know, feeling inadequate. Like it's like there's an unspoken agreement that will all, help with wheel time where necessary. And I'm like, I'm guessing I'll just hang out in the back a little more.
See, I always thought it was just like world championship ticket holders don't deign to drive.
Like heading around.
Exempt.
No, you had your own battle of not being car sick and holding the group up. But joining us via Ouija board is Davey after a long night. Davey, are you with us?
All signs point to maybe.
After that, I believe you. So for context, we're recording this on September 8th. Still no new releases, but news from Nova is plenty happening here is the quote. So we'll take that and run. It's more than Warcry got, so I guess we have that.
Yeah.
We got to imagine that is commentary behind the scenes and not commentary as to what we're actually experiencing.
And then, so if you haven't guessed, today's topic is our Nova experience for these three. So I'll be interviewing them and how it went. I went last year, so I have some context to ask them how things differed this year. Quick rip to Grandma and Grandpa's shop. I heard that they have closed. Hopefully it was on their terms, but just going to miss that.
Agreed.
When I go back.
It was the saddest beat to launch the trip with. Woke up that morning and I was like, hey, by the way, like that's the sandwich shop across the street. And, I gave them that heads up at that last night. And then Davey messages me on his run. Yeah, it's closed. It's gone. No.
Just good hometown vibes. And I was sad to hear. Hopefully they closed on their terms. But we'll start off with some community shout outs for hometown vibes. Davey, you got something for us?
I do. This is not at the time of recording, not yet out, but should be dropping before this episode drops. I did up a workup on a love letter for Thricefold and sent that off to our good bud Fish Mode at Spent Glory. So that'll be on there. That was kind of fun to write out. I realized writing a blog post is a lot easier if you just write it and don't have to worry about any of the formatting. So,
for sure.
Outsourcing blog posts might be the new thing. I don't know.
Clutch move.
There's actually a few different things coming through. So I saw. After a bit of a hiatus from Underworlds content, Battle Mallet dropped a new episode just recently, and they interviewed Gerard and talked to him about his Nova deck, playing his, of all things, Toxic Terrors Dreppers to take down the Nova Clash, which is pretty exciting. So if you want more details about that, go check them out. And then for those of you who really like to dig into data, R77 over on the Vassal Discord has been asking people to submit tournament data for a while now, just so they can have like a larger data set of like what are people running in tournaments and what are the outcomes for each of the different warbands. And he did an article that's just basically a data analysis of that data set. It was like 1,850 total games in the data set, and it was all tournament results, so nothing's like just regular games. And then he broke it down by like total just win-loss percentages and pairings, and then just the pairings and wins that were associated with a tournament that had a ticket for Worlds.
Wow.
So you could sort of see the split of like, what were people taking when they thought the tickets were on the line? What were people bringing just in general? And then he like broke it down by like, what were the, most winningest warbands? And it's pretty interesting stuff. Honestly, none of it was terribly surprising after reading it, but
I was surprised to see Domatan so low, but Hexbanes and Headcrack is at the forefront there.
Yeah.
But very cool, and good graphic with a pie chart there for showing the attendance. Little jumping off point, R77's data. Basically, it's looking, because I submitted the data for our Q3 event, and I was worried, like, I don't know how much data he's looking for. Don't sweat it. Just looking for you report just once per game. You don't report for each side, and they're just looking for warband and pairing versus what warband and pairing, how many wins, how many losses, how many ties, and then there's a tag for was this part of an event. That's it. So I got through all of our Q3 data in about 40 minutes. So it's cool. Also, because we wanted to make sure the Q3 event got plenty of status. So we applied for the ticket for obviously the ticket, but then also hobby scores we reported for BCP. So all of our attendants got that, as well as contributing to R77, just trying to make sure we got the most out of the event.
It is funny because I saw the message where Scott was like, "Hey, is somebody able to put in our stuff for this?" And you were like, "I don't know. Like, I'm not feeling like I got the motivation to do it." And then I stepped away and then came back to you and you're like, "It's done." And I was like, "Whoa."
Yeah, I was also surprised.
I'm not a data guy, so I'm just like, okay, like I'm not loving this. And then I looked down, I'm like, this ain't too bad. And I'm just knuckle down. So it was not a slog, but it was just a slog for me. But not bad at all, R77. So
I got a chance to listen to the Battle Mallet episode. I couldn't wait. For those who follow them, their journey is to Nova every year. It's, at the top of their podcast, talking about balancing life as dads and, how that fits into gaming and their journey into Nova every year. So this isn't that episode. They always do like a post Nova, grand episode describing, how the year went for them, as that is a mission statement of their podcast. That one's to come. But the episode with Gerard was fantastic. It was their 69th episode, so that was nice. And I found out that Jason and I share a similar taste in music, with a longtime favorite being Linkin Park. And we're both excited. It turns out that they are back in the swing with a new lead singer, a new vocalist as part of the crew there. But as far as Underworlds itself goes, if you want more from Gerard, it sounds like Path to Glory will be tackling an episode here soon as well, to go over his tournament victory, with the Battle Mallets coverage more focused on that deck deep dive and how to play it. And as we were sitting down to launch this episode today and to record it together, Underworlds Underground just dropped their 10th episode. So just all of the four, podcasts that I'm aware of, just episodes coming out the barrels. And that's always exciting. Means I've got some listening.
Yeah, it looks like Underworlds Underground interviewed both Beard Arm and Andy, who is the one who received the ticket at Tacoma. So interesting to listen to that one.
That's rad.
Yeah. Anybody got any what the heck is going on with you? Hobby updates. I know I have been languishing with the hobby progress. I need to hopefully kickstart that tomorrow morning.
I can just say that I blitzed through. I did in the same way that I did about a 24-hour paint job on the Thundrix that Emmett brought. I did the same for my Thrice Fold, and I'm happy with the results for the time put in, but I'm looking forward to doing something like taking my time a little bit. I just got to pick what that's going to be.
How'd you tackle those gems?
Not very well.
I will say
I don't blame you.
having gotten to play you, a little spoiler of some of our potential topics later, but having gotten to play against you and see them painted after playing against them as bare plastic for however many times, they were really nice. I was like, wow,
nice.
That was 24 hours. They look cool. They're very different than most other people's paint jobs. So very, very nice.
I hope you don't hang them up because I actually can't say I got to see them during the event. So
you
at
use
least
all
bring them out,
your
show them off.
ample spare time to go take a look.
Exactly. Oof.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. So in general, like we're not going to be going too in depth into the tournament performance and game blow by blow. It's basically just going to be like their experience at Nova and kind of like give you an idea of whether or not it's something that you want to be a part of, just kind of they paid money to go and do this, and it was a good trip, and I had fun when I went, so I want to see how they enjoyed it. So guys, you made the decision to road trip down there. It was about a 13-hour trip. You three plus Emmett, who joins us in spirit. He's still doing fine. He's just not here on the recording. He was tuckered out after that. But how did the road trip go?
Well, that generated from I was looking at airfare, and one problem with being a parent is that if you're flying anywhere with kids, then airfare gets expensive quickly.
You get a carry-on, right?
So I think I looked at it, I was like, Emmett, you just want to drive? He's like, yeah, I'm fine with that. So like I told these guys, like, hey, I think I'm driving. And then it just generated into a 4-person road trip. And we were also able to like shuttle miniatures and stuff for a couple other people that were coming with us, which by we, I mean Skylar. But
yeah, shout out to Wellner and Zach from our local for coming along with us as well. It was really fun. We had kind of all decided to do this, and I think Phil was the first to be like, well, then let's make it a road trip. And I with my car sickness was like, oh, sure, let's make it a road trip. And no regrets there. But then like with like going to the locals, our Thursday nights, all of a sudden it was like, Wellner, I think I'm coming to Nova too. And I was like, whoa, what? And Zach as well, which was just really exciting. So we got to come down kind of in force.
Yeah, absolutely. And as, a 13-hour drive, you look at that and it's like, that feels a little daunting. But it went by surprisingly fast. I think we had lots to talk about with gaming and just other stuff, but was a very enjoyable experience. I kind of am glad that we got to do that as a podcast. Although, sorry, Brian, you missed out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I grew up doing family road trips, and when family tensions get the better of you, it's not a totally enjoyable experience. So I dread road trips, but I look forward to having a friend road trip like that where I can think differently of road trips. But no, it was cool that you guys all went. My wife had her golden birthday, so I had to stay at home. It was part of the trade of going last year, but Nova typically will coincide with her birthday. However, in a couple of years, it will not coincide exactly on the weekend. So maybe that'll be when I get to go back.
maybe.
I know I'm going to forever have a longing to return. So we can chat as it looks more likely.
Mm-hmm. But now, yeah. I will say now we have traveled to each of the other cons, so it's time people start coming to Adepticon.
There you go.
I issue a challenge to Underworlds Underground and Battle Mallet to come and visit us at our home con.
Yeah, well, and
help us fight back Path to Glory at the podium.
Yes, they can't keep getting away with it.
Well, you say that.
One thing I want to jump in with the car ride, I've been, and this kind of tails off your family car rides comment, is I've definitely been in 2-hour car rides that felt like 4 hours.
Yeah.
And this was somehow 13 hours that felt like 3. Like I could not believe there was a second digit on the end of that.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that Emmett could tolerate all of you.
He did great. He got to play like a ton of Nintendo, and then a lot of. I actually had to scale it back for the ride back. I was like, you kind of did like a crazy amount of Nintendo on the way out. So let's try and have more variety. And so he and Skylar actually played quite a few games in the back. He brought a whole tote of small portable games, and they had a little setup. So Skylar introduced us to a couple games that are definitely on our list now to pick up. So.
Nice.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So yeah. So after you guys arrived at Nova after your road trip, the event was on Sunday, correct? And you guys arrived on Thursday?
That is correct.
Okay. So how did you guys spend your Nova prior to the Underworlds event? Did you guys sign up for anything? Highlights, lowlights, just kind of, we'll start with who wants to go first?
I can do it since I was first time out there. There was some hecticness. Like we arrived, it was raining, it was super crowded. We weren't sure like where to roll in. Like there's all gamers and people running or attending events were all unloading. And so I kind of got there. I dumped everything out of the car top carrier, left Emmett and these guys to like kind of shuttle stuff to rooms. And they said, hey, there's an overflow parking garage across the way. I was like, perfect. So I go over there at a clearance of 5'7", which is the lowest parking garage I've ever even heard of.
DC is quite compact.
Yeah. So I had to back out into the street, and then in the rain, like pull the carrier off, jam it into the trunk, hopefully that it would, hoping that it would fit if I dropped all the seats, which it did. So there was one moment there I was like, man, what am I like drove 13 hours. This is like crazy hectic. I know there's going to be a lot of money on food and the lodging and stuff. Like, why did I do this? But that first night just got to meet a few people and then kind of crash. But if I were to sum up most of the free time, it would be with 3 words, and that would be board game lounge.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of to my surprise, actually, is that like I knew we were probably just going to hang out with Battle Mallet guys and play a bunch of random games and stuff. But so that Friday, I guess, the sort of the first day of just hanging out and playing games, like it was so much fun that I was like, oh yeah, this will be fine. We'll just do this until the Underworlds tournament. Like I had these ideas of being like, well, maybe I'll play some of the Battle Mallet guys in Underworlds beforehand because like might not get to play them. Spoiler, did not get to play them. But it was just really cool to just hang out and play. And it didn't like, it was actually a little funny. I didn't even like go and check out the whole con until like 2 days into the thing. Cause it was just like, we got the board games here. Why would I go look at anything else? And it was like, there's no vendors. There's no like big tournament hall. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. Because I just haven't gone downstairs to look at any of it.
I didn't even know there was a downstairs until like late Saturday.
Yeah, that hotel is quite like twisty turny, and like you turn a corner and you're like, oh, there's a whole other hall here that I wouldn't have recognized. It's very different than what Adepticon was. We'll see how Adepticon will be. But I found the hotel very fascinating. What did you guys think of that big grand ballroom that they got?
The like area where they have the big 40K tournament?
Yeah.
Well, it certainly felt more like Adepticon down there. When I was like wandering through some of the other spaces and looking at the vendors and stuff, I was like, man, everything's so small and compact. Like compared to Adepticon in the years past, where that Schaumburg Convention Center is like really big open spaces, really high ceilings, and it just felt kind of large and full. It was like, by comparison, it was like, oh man, so much of this feels very like small and like more intimate, where it's like this doesn't feel like a big sprawling con. And then you walk into the 40K space and it's like just noise everywhere, and they've got tables everywhere, and it's just like, okay, no, this is what I'm used to.
I recognize this.
Yeah, because they have like this big grand ballroom that has like this very like convex, or roof to it, and it's got this interesting lattice work. And we were in there hanging out with Battle Mallet guys last year, and when that place is full, so when that place is empty, you can hear almost clear across the whole room. It is crazy acoustics in there. But when it's full like that, because when it's empty, you're like, oh my God, I can hear somebody all the way across the hall, and they're not talking very loudly. They're just talking casually. I'm like, this hall is going to be insane for noise level. But then when it did get full, I felt like the noise level wasn't anything untoward. Like it was both dampened, like you could hear the dude directly across from you at the table, and not be drowned out by everybody else. I thought that room was very fascinating. I just thought that stood out. And then they have another hall in the hotel, which was kind of where the Age of Sigmar stuff was last year. Was that the same? That was a little bit closer to Adepticon style halls at the Schaumburg Center.
Sound level too, like much harder to hear in there than to hear in the Grand Ballroom.
Right.
Yeah. And like the beauty of that Grand Ballroom, I don't think can be like understated. Like the idea that it's one of the lowest levels and it's the biggest room. Like as I went deeper down, I didn't expect the rooms to become gigantic.
Right.
Yeah, it was kind of a magic trick too. Like that fairly powerful AC. Like when I first walked in there, I was like, "Oh, it's cooler in here." I think that maybe towards the end of the day, like wore off a little bit, but it was definitely a space that was built to like hold this sort of thing or the equivalent.
Absolutely, and I think like the style of the room too makes it suitable for like any event. Like it feels like a great place for, this sci-fi celebration, but it could as easily be turned into some like giant glamorous wedding. I don't know. It's kind of cool. I think it's
a really cool space.
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys mainly hung out in the ballroom, or not in the ballroom, the board game lounge,
which they moved.
They moved.
So yeah, if you can imagine where the vendors were last year, the vendors actually got moved to where the board game lounge was last year. So they had more room,
more central.
And I wonder what the surveys on that decision is going to look like, because it made for an always packed board game lounge.
Okay.
Yeah. But like at the same time, where do you put people? Like they're playing this like shell game of where best should people sit in the little bits of spaces that we have.
Yeah. And I did manage to break away at one point. We went to the it was called the Udvar Hazy Center. It's like the Smithsonian's Air and Space overflow almost, although that makes it sound like it's just like some stuff kind of casually thrown there. It's kind of amazing. They had like the Space Shuttle Discovery, bunch of crazy helicopters. I've got a friend who lives out in the DC area, so we kind of met up and checked that out. And that was pretty spectacular. We've mostly done a lot of the DC stuff on previous, which made me not feel guilty about us mostly just hunkering down and playing games instead of checking out things. But
that's always the crazy part about museums, is they have whole warehouses of crazy stuff that, like, because they do actually cycle the stuff through so that the stuff within the museum is different from different times at the year when you go. So also plenty of stuff to do in DC when you go to Nova, which is really cool.
Yeah. I found it a little bit funny when so we were like planning out a couple runs in the morning, and I was just like looking for a park, but then Davey sent a picture from one morning and he's like, "Oh, this is a pretty cool place," and he just ran over to the White House. It's like, oh yeah, that's right, you can just do that here.
Did you guys take a Captain America opportunity? Running around the reflection pond on your left.
National Mall. Oh yeah, right. Yeah. It was a little too far away for that to be casually. We did find a weird park that had a bunch of sculptures in it. The first one I saw was like Buchanan. I was like, oh okay, let's see what presidents made the cut. next picture, next sculpture was Dante. And I was like,
Yeah.
and then like the next one was Joan of Arc. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
It's
No,
very strange.
I've been to DC a couple times, and I'm like, it's just America's trophy room. Like, they pocket like crazy cool statues in different little corners, and I was going on a tour once, and it was a big golden hand holding a flaming sword. I was like, what is that? And they're like, oh, the French gave that to us after World War II as a thank you. And I'm just like, and you just pocket it over here in like this corner? And they're like, yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was fun. Just randomly like, oh, I'm running past the Spanish embassy, or like just. I've got some friends who spent some time in Trinidad and Tobago, so I was able to be like, hey, you want me to snap a picture in front of that? And then I was like, you need me to talk to anybody about old times or anything like that? It was just you would just randomly come across these things. So that is a kind of cool special appeal for Nova. Is all that is available if you want it.
Very cool. So question for Skylar, now that you've flown and road tripped, when we flew, we went out and arrived on Wednesday. How did the experiences compare?
Yeah. So first off, flying didn't leave me saddle sore, which is a thing I now have added to my lexicon, and didn't require immediately like hitting the sack and falling asleep, right? So, and then just waking up late the next day, coming in, via flight, felt a little more fresh for us. Just not the same for everybody, right? But for us, it takes a 13-hour drive, but a 2-3 hour flight. So last year Brian and I were able to hit the ground running once we got in, and we arrived ahead of like things being stood up. So we got to kind of like see the con getting stood up around us, which was really interesting.
Did they have the hotel keys working this time?
They did.
Boy.
Last year they didn't have the key creator device working, and so they had to send security with you to escort you to your room and let you in.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was wild, and it lasted way longer than you would think. It was like a 24-hour problem.
Well into Thursday.
No.
Yep. So they were giving away like free drink tickets and stuff like that the whole time. Anytime you'd walk up and ask about the key situation, they would just deflect and be like, "Yeah, go ahead and grab a drink.
Free drink.
Look over here. Look over here. These free tickets right over here."
Thank you for asking. But yeah.
Last year I felt like there was more time to it, and it was cool seeing it kind of get stood up around us. I thought that was a really interesting experience. This year, because we left the day after, I kind of got the opposite experience where I got to see it close down, and that is a sad thing to witness. Like, I think I want to leave while the magic is still all in place, and instead of watching it get torn down, and like everybody, it goes so quick. Like, you want that teardown to happen quickly, because you want to leave the convention open as long as you can. But then comes a time to getting back to reality, and I could just see that happening around me, and I was like, no, the magic is disappearing. But my time last time was more varied as well, which I think kind of adds to like last time it felt like I was there for a much longer period, and sure, there was an extra day, tacked on there. But this time around, like I had the same 3-word experience that Davey had, where I was at the board game lounge Thursday, Friday. Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday was Underworlds, and I wouldn't change that, but it was a really interesting thing to like just fly out drive out and spend the whole time over board games with people that you don't get to spend a lot of time with. It was more about the people and less about the convention itself, whereas last year you and I made sure it was more about the convention because we really wanted to sample it.
Yeah, we mainly the Battle Mallet guys toured us around, but arriving there on Wednesday, it's cool getting everything set up. And arriving on Wednesday or just at any con, like Adepticon as well, because I've done Adepticon day trips where you just go like either Friday, Sunday, Saturday or something. And arriving on that Wednesday, Thursday is really nice because all the people attending the con, and especially like vendors or people who work for the game companies, are still fresh-eyed and like they're excited too. But by Friday, Saturday, they're just like, no, we don't have it in stock. What? Like, and they're just kind of giving canned answers because they've had already thousands of people asking them similar questions. And I feel like Wednesday, Thursday is most valuable for getting like that fresh interaction. And I think those kind of stick a little more because then in Friday, Saturday experiences, it all blurs together. It's a whirlwind. But yeah, cons can be relatively cheap in the sense that you don't have to prep a whole army and prepare for a tournament. You can just go and play at the board game lounge where they have lots of stuff for you to choose from, and they'll have parties rallying up. I frequently heard a highlight at the con was not just the board game lounge, but you guys did some Blood on the Clock Tower.
That's true. That was the evening activity for 2 nights actually.
Awesome. And how that kicked off was fantastic too, because we were just hanging out in the board game lounge. We had a copy next to us. Our intentions were to get it rolling for that Friday night, and somebody completely new to us, her name's Audrey, came up to us like we had not met yet, and was just like, hey, I noticed you guys have a copy of Blood on the Clock Tower here. We're trying to get a game going. We don't have enough people. Would you be interested in joining? And we were like, 20, 30 minutes to meet you there? Absolutely. And that was my first experience with a new script too. For those familiar with the game, there's character scripts, 3 of them established. And generally, if you're ever playing this game with newer people, especially newer people, you're always kind of playing the first script to get everybody used to the experience. And so I've never really graduated, if you will, beyond that script, and you don't really need to. It's a ton of fun. And so it was just delightful to have this first experience where neither Davey or I, as kind of like the traditional storytellers for the game, are trying to figure it out live for the first time, but to just be a part of it was awesome.
I think that one, especially you and Emma and I, kind of like made this like puzzle busting team where we mostly trusted each other, and at some point I was like, I kind of just have to trust Skylar at this point. Like if I'm wrong about trusting Skylar, then a whole lot falls apart for me. So we'll just we'll proceed with that and not worry about the case where that might not be.
I doubt he's listening, but Mike, you chaos goblin, if you're out there, you're living rent free in my head for deciding to just screw with my information for fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying out that new script. We break out Blood on the Clock Tower pretty frequently in here, and excited to try that out. So that was kind of like the Nova unique experiences before we get into the Underworlds event. Rapid fire, would you go back?
I would like to
go ahead
in the rapid fire say that we went to meet Battle Mallet last year, and this year I went back because I couldn't wait to hang out with them again. And in departing, I didn't feel like I had enough time to hang out with them. And so in whatever way, shape, or form it happens, I will make hanging out with them happen again. And I imagine that means going to Nova at some time once more.
That's been nice.
Yeah. I was one of the first time goers, and so sort of an opportunity to compare and contrast against the experience at Adepticon, but then also was very much interested in meeting the Battle Mallet guys, and that was certainly the highlight for me. I felt like that was what made the trip all worthwhile. Would definitely go back, but just with the distance traveled and the cost, it is probably not a every year kind of thing when also doing Adepticon and running events at Adepticon. So whenever we do get to go back, I'm certainly excited for it, but to be determined as to when that might actually happen.
Yeah, I'm a similar boat where I thought it was pretty incredible, and Skylar and Brian had really hyped up the Battle Mallet crew, and I was like, all right, I listen to their podcast, we chat on Discord and stuff. They seem cool, but they lived up to and surpassed. I'd met Trace briefly when he was in town, but they're all super amazing, and somehow exceeded the hype that these guys were putting out. And mostly for me, it was I was confident that Emmett was. If you asked me, I would have said I was confident that Emmett was ready for it, but there was definitely some anxiety about like, is this going to be too much? Is this going to be? And they were like a big part of making that making him feel welcome, making him feel like he was a part of it and belonged there, and that. While that was great for him, it was also great for me. Like I was able to relax a little more. Just really can't say enough about how much I appreciate that aspect in particular, and their company in general. It was really excellent. So that was great. Our ability to return is contingent upon. It always is near. It's that Labor Day weekend, and sometimes, depending on where that lands, school has already started for the kids, and so that I think will be the deciding factor in years to come. But I think Emmett would be down for more convention travel. He's actually in the room here. He's nodding enthusiastically. Yes,
Very
nice.
Cool. I
love it. It's something that I would like to do too. Is just the four of us and Emmett, bring him along. Get together and do something.
Bigger car though, right?
The car was fine for the size of the crew, but adding you, there would not have been a seat. So yeah, like it's cool that folks probably figure out listening to the podcast that we get along pretty well, but we really only get to see each other on Thursday nights, and the conversations we have over Discord and here. So. To be able to steal some time and actually hang out. I'm looking forward to more of that, and incredibly surprised that and this is something I've already talked to you about, Davey, but just how much fun I had hanging out with Emmett. I think he's a really rad kid.
Yeah, thanks.
Very nice. Yeah, I would love to go back. It's not going to be an every year thing. I also have the wife's birthday hurdle that'll circle around year after year, but would love to go back and love to go with you guys and see the Battle Mallet guys again. So that is basically the NovaCon experience, but we'll talk now about the Underworlds tournament experience. It was a world qualifying event. This would be a golden ticket, one up for grabs. How many people were in attendance for this tournament?
I believe there were 34 or 35 tickets sold, but in terms of people who actually showed up to play, I think it ended up being 33.
Which is awesome for a Sunday event.
Yeah, very good. Last day of the con. I mean, somewhat frustratingly, like our event was like the last thing of the entire convention, so we were running up against like the time where they have to shut everything down and start taking the tables down. So
gotcha.
No flexibility there for the timing. So, but yeah, 33 is good. I think that's the largest Underworlds tournament in the US that's happened since when Adepticon was bigger. So glad to see those numbers coming back
pre-COVID.
up. Yeah.
I was shocked somebody was posting the pre-COVID numbers. I forgot how big. I guess Nova was like 80 and Adepticon was
we had
96.
96.
Yeah.
Which
man,
like when we were taking up like half of the hall in Adepticon. That was pretty crazy. But one of the cool things that happened with that starting out with 33 people is, so Jason from Battle Mallet was I was a little sad because he brought Godsworn Hunt. He was going to be that guy,
like a hero.
But unfortunately, with an odd number, he was like, well, hey, I'm going to, take this one for the team. I'm going to sit out so that you guys can have an even number. Nobody's going to have to sit through a bye or whatever.
What a guy.
That would have been kind of lame to be like, hey, I came all the way for this tournament and I just have to sit out an entire round. So that was really cool of him. But even better then is that as the tournament went on, some people dropped out. And since the numbers got uneven again, he then was like a ringer to come back in and play people to make sure they had a game. So it was like, wow, champion of the people. Way to go, Jason.
Yeah. Absolute hero. And he when he goes to Nova, he is a absolute marathoner. Like, he's going to be up all night playing games and running himself ragged. So part of me is like,
except for this year.
Oh. I was gonna say, like, maybe by Sunday he's like, I'm really worn out, I need this. And
no. It wasn't that at all. In fact, he might have got some beauty sleep this year because I was up late looking for him one night and sent him a message. Did Can't Stop Won't Stop I didn't get reply until the next morning.
All right, well, gonna have to spur him on to more greater heights next time we go.
It can't be understated how cool that is, right? Like, this is their titular, annual experience, and they love this game so much and this community so much that, like, it's really cool that he was like, no, I would rather there be even numbers. I would rather, like, everybody else, get a chance to participate in this event. Kind of just sharing his love for the game in that way, and being able to watch the event happening. So
yeah, that's called leadership. So props to Jason. So when you guys went into the event, you guys had set some goals. Do you guys remember what those goals were, and did you accomplish them?
I'll go last here since I had the flimsiest of goals.
Best I can remember is I think I clearly said, like, I really want to, like, it'd be really cool to get a ticket, but I know that is a reach based on how much I have prepared going into it, and so I think I was really hoping to make it to 4-1 on the day. I was like, I'll feel pretty proud of that record, and that with the side goal of making sure that Emmett was prepared to play his games. That was kind of a big part of my prep, was doing that. And when we found out they were 90-minute rounds, you could see like a shadow pass over his face where he's like, because we had, and I mean, everybody's right, but we'd worked hard to get his games down to like 40 minutes or so. And all of a sudden that was not going to be enough if you were going to 3. And it wasn't clear going in like what the concession situation was going to be. So, or to us at least. And so when I woke him up that morning, I was like, "Are you ready?" And he said, "No." I said, "What? You're not?" And he said, "Well, I'm not ready for 90-minute rounds, but I'm excited to be playing." I was like, "Okay, all right. Well, fair. That's very self-aware.
That's everybody, honestly."
So, but for me, he finished the event smiling, and that was big for me. So
yeah. Well, since Davey didn't want to say it, I will say it. That Davey did manage to also come in 4th place.
Right. Yeah.
For the overall
with the 4-1. Yeah.
Yeah. So a pretty big accomplishment there. I feel like, and missed the podium by just a hair, but like the level of competition at this tournament was pretty crazy high. So fierce. I would say very, very well done. For me, my goals going in, I had very much wanted to be like in contention for the ticket, and I think the Q3 tournament kind of made me think I think I've set myself up for failure in a certain way, in that like I've just put a lot of pressure on myself because I kept being like, I'm going to make it to Worlds this year, like all year long, and then it didn't happen at Adepticon, it didn't happen at Q3, and I was like, I think I need to like try to get out of my own head here and set some different goals, because I think I'm going to be a little disappointed if I just keep this track. And so I tried to reframe to be like, I want to play, fun games, and I wanted to make sure that all of my games, like none of my games were like just a non-competition. I wanted it to be like, I know that I did everything I could in all of these games, regardless of whether I won or lost. Because I've had plenty of tournament experiences where I get into games and for whatever reasons, either because of the matchup or the dice or, it just ends up that I come out of the game feeling like I didn't even give my opponent a good game here. And that's like the worst possible feeling in a tournament of like, I wanted to be a hard out and it wasn't. So that was like the big thing for me is like, I don't want any of those kind of experiences. And I would say that despite having the worst record of everybody in our group, I think that I did accomplish that. I think all of my games, except from the first game of the tournament, where I managed to win that first round 2-0. Every other round I had to go to 3 because I wouldn't go down without a fight.
Really leveraging the was there a lot of concedes to be able to make that work, or you're just playing that crisply?
When I played against Mark, he had to concede game 2 because I went and blew up the warden, and he was like, "Yep, nope, I'm done. I want to make sure there's time." So he conceded that one, and then when I was playing against you, we didn't have to do any concessions, but we were going pretty fast. I played against Iron Souls, didn't have any concessions there, but those games were also very quick because Scott, my opponent, had the blessed dice of Sigmar for 2 of those rounds where he was just all crits all day. And then against, I don't know how we possibly did it, but against George, there was no concessions either, but I did go to 3 and it was just close. But somehow we went really fast. I don't know. It might have helped that like we were both trying to be like who can not engage first, and like the whole first round of all the games was like just drawing power cards.
A lot of venturing going on.
Yeah. But yeah, I was a little honestly kind of shocked that I was able to get through so many games in 90 minutes. But it was always like, you guys have 5 minutes left, or you're over by 5 minutes, and it's like, we know, we're very consciously aware of this.
Exhausting.
Yeah, it is a blitz.
Yeah, I was very disappointed with the 90-minute thing. I'm glad that they allowed for some flexibility beyond the 90 minutes, but it was a blur of a day, and one where it was really hard to find time to like I didn't get a chance to check in with anybody, between rounds, see how people are doing, and
that's a great. I had never had any idea how anyone else was doing. Like I would barely have time to go find him and make sure he was okay, and then like launch into the next one. Like it was that much of a blitz.
Well, and to the TO's credit, they said, a lot of this was framework from last year, and they kind of ended the event with and next year we're going to make sure that you get proper, 2-hour round times. And there was just a ton of cheering.
Well, what he actually said was, we'll make sure that we get the proper hour and 20 minutes. And it was like, and like, I'm sure he meant 120 minutes. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Phil, was that the kind of like natural end there, or did you have any more that you wanted to say?
I think we should hear your goals. Did you accomplish what you set out to do?
Yeah. So
because this mad lad brought Skaith's Wild Hunt. State your intentions.
we had this round table dinner. I think maybe Thursday or Friday night, I think is when this was. And we went around the table and asked each other about our goals. And I felt so silly because I was like, I don't know who I'm playing yet. Like I brought all
real me move.
I brought Miari's Purifier, Soul Raid, and Skaith's Wild Hunt. And I was like, I'm probably playing one of these with Rime-Locked Relics. I think it's Skaith. I really want to, I had this personal drive to see how far I could push that deck through an event. But I was also receiving whispers from Spinner. I know you're listening, saying you should play Magor's Fiends. And right now, I'm like wildly undefeated in our local with that deck. Like it has seen 5 games against 5 different warbands, and it has come out on top of all of those. One that it should not have. And I was like, should I, for Spinnerite, field this? I have a lot of fun playing this too. But ultimately, like at the table, I was like, I just, guys, I got to figure out by Saturday what I'm playing. And if it is Skace Wild Hunt, the goal is just to see how far I can push it. I want to take 2 of the 5 games, and we'll see how much further I can push it from there. And so we get to the event, and I actually win both of my first matches and go to lunch. The 15-20 minutes I was able to grab for lunch. And I went to lunch going, oh my gosh, I'm 2-0. Like I've already hit, like what I was hoping to hit with them. I was like, how far does this go? And like I just had this rush of excitement that like maybe I can really push this record further, and so I was so crushed.
Get back in your place.
When all 3 of the next games were defeats. However, I want to say that Zach introduced me to the term hard out. We heard Phil just mention it.
Yeah.
In that round table, he said that his goal, especially with the level of competition there, and a world ticket being on the line, was that he wanted to make sure that he wasn't that he was a hard out for each of his opponents. And Zach is somebody who I think kind of chameleons in our local, in the sense that like we've talked about Wellner a lot, who joined us because Wellner is an Exile Dead player. And like is a very enthusiastic, and he's our mad scientist, and took that one event with Grisel's plus Void Curse Thralls. So he tends to enter the conversation for us a lot because of his wonderful madness. But Zach, I want to take a moment to highlight how cool Zach is. Like he is so competitive so quickly. Like I think he'd been in the game like 3 months tops when he went to Alberta. Brian,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, he flies under the radar.
And he's so chill, and every game that you play against him, or like a match in a tournament, it's going to be a hard out. And he's so kind too. He's a giant teddy bear. I love the guy. He's great. And I'm really glad that both Wellner and him were able to join us.
Yeah. It's not just Unmatched he's good at either. We were playing Clock Tower, and I'd always be like, oh my God, he's on to me. Smoke bombs, run away.
So I guess the last thing for me is that at any event like this, a goal is to enjoy the time with the people that I'm across the table with, and hopefully get to meet as many people as I can. And I knew that was going to be hard with the 90 minutes. So there was a lot of conceding in my games to push the clock. And that was a bummer for me, because I'm very much so an advocate for, if there's a chance, then take it, like play that game to the end. Like, unless without a doubt, that there's no chance for victory mathematically, like be scrappy and like limit test yourself. You'll be surprised, and you'll find some awesome wins that way. And there were matches that I would have played out if it wasn't for this 90-minute pressure. And the decision went from like, oh, I absolutely can't win this. Let's concede and grab some more time. It went from that to the likelihood is low, so I'm going to have to take the concede here and move on. And those are the types of games I love to play out and see if I can't change the math and see if the luck starts going my way, and push as hard as I can.
Destiny.
Yeah. So I was bummed to be conceding so many of those games over the event to try to get to the next one in the time. But my opponents, which is where I was trying to arrive at, were all fantastic. So I just wanted to shout them out real quick. I fought against Kevin with Plague Pack, and he had absolutely gorgeous paint job on those models. And he was playing with Voidcurse Thralls, which is a deck I love, and wins best painted. So shout out to you, Kevin, for your paint. And it was a pleasure playing a game with you. He had a rat shirt on, so like he knew what he was about. And I actually had my Plague Pack tokens that I made in my pack, just because I like them so much. I was like, like I was getting my pack together for the trip, and I was like, I'm not bringing Plague Pack. They can probably stay. I was like, they're not taking up much room. I'll just leave them in there. And he was like, oh, this territory is corrupted. And we kind of just marked that verbally. And I was like, actually, and I put it down. I was like, we can mark it this way. And he was like, whoa, those are cool. And I was like, would you play them, for the rest of the event? And like, I'd like to hand these to you.
Cool.
So,
Nice.
so that was really cool. And every time, like, I saw him, like adjacent to me during a match, I got to see him placing those on the table, and that sparked a lot of joy for me. So I can always make another set, and I wanted to make more of those. So it'll force me to. But then I played against a Mark who played Crushes with Voidcurse Thralls, and this was he was an absolute pleasure. He just, every time we would kind of feel the tension, or like I'd say pass, and then I'd say sorry, I want to play something. He'd be like, we're just chill, man. We're chill. No worries. And he was bombastically fun because he was also learning a lot. He loved the game enough on the table at home. Him and his partner play, I guess, a lot. Generally like Rippas versus Crushes. And when she came at one point to surprise him that she was there, he was like, oh my gosh, we've been playing so much wrong. He's like, the roll-offs. He's like, they're not 5 dice, they're 4 dice. And he's like, and you're not even going to believe this charged out thing. Turns out we can actually reactivate these fighters. And her face was like, what? She's like, I can spear you again with Stab It. So that was really cool. Next up, and you all were wonderful, so I'm just trying to give you a little breath here. Oliver played Rippas, and one of the things that I noticed right away was that he painted Rippas with a different fur color and put a gold rim around the base, and I loved that touch. If they ever see paint from me, and there would be like far down the queue, but like that would be the way that I'd go about it. And it was a really like quiet game between the two of us. We were really feeling the pressure of the 90 minutes, but I think more so than anywhere. Like he had to concede the first game, I had to concede the second game, and we were really trying to push for that third game. And we hit kind of like the end of round 2. We were already over, and the TO kind of came over to check on us, and we were like, hey, we're starting the third of the third. Like, can we push through? And I could tell kind of between Oliver and I that neither of us were sure if we really wanted that. Like, I know I always want to see like things come to a conclusion, but we're exhausted. We're pressing up against like the next round then. And he was like, you guys got 5 minutes. He's like, I need scores in 5 minutes. So we weren't even able to see the round all the way through, but we kind of got to that point where it was like, okay, like he's overtaken it in momentum there. So
yeah.
I was like, hey, let's call it here. Like, you've made it near impossible for me to win now, and we're so pressed against time. Let's help the TO out a little bit. And so that was really cool exchange. And afterwards he was like, by the way, he's like, I watched your episode on building Skace Wild Hunt.
That's cool.
And he's like, I actually have them. I'm going to sleeve this deck up and try it later.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And then next was Graham and G. And I lumped them together because they came from the same meta. G and Graham practiced a ton. G said most of his practice time was in helping G out. G was playing Grimwatch with Ramlock Relics, and or sorry,
Graham was
not G.
playing.
Graham.
Yeah.
Yep. Graham was. Graham takes second on the day. Graham was a fantastic opponent. I'd met him the day before. We spent like 15, 20 minutes talking board games and stuff the day before. And so when I sat down, I didn't expect him to be as nervous as he was. But he was like, hey, he's like, I got to say, it's really great, to be able to have games with you guys, because I'm such a fan of the podcasts. I listen to it when I go to sleep at night. You guys are my ASMR.
Yeah. Which maybe we've got our Patreon content figured out there.
Surely I can't have anything to do with that.
Just be like, and now I'm going to draw a power card. Isn't that nice?
A nice little venture.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, I got to play against G there at the end as well, Crimson Court and Rhymelach Relic, and those were great games. I think we were both bemoaning the time. I think we spent a lot of time kind of just just out of our mind on that sprint, and like I think he just handled that out of mind state a little better than I did. And it was great to finally grab a game with him. And I know there's more games in our future. I'm looking more forward to not having the time pressure. Afterwards, I was like, I think I held my own enough in that one. But so just I didn't come into that wanting to give a full rundown of the games, but I just wanted to mention that I had great opponents all day, and came away from each of them with memories. And like playing against Graham, it was one of those where like you're playing against a Cold War band, and I got the choice to go first or second, and it was one of those really cool moments where you think like, oh shoot, like normally I'm going to make a Cold War band go second or go first, so that I can get final say against their activations. But I think I should go first here and get onto tokens and force the tempo of him having to peel me off of them instead of the other way around. And I think I took the wrong choice because I made him go first, and I could not peel him off of anything. Womp womp.
So just to give some context, Skylar preempted a little bit, but I wasn't going to interrupt his flow state. But just to give some context for how the tournament shook out, and then we'll ask highlights and lowlights from the event. So in first place, and the ticket taker is Gerard the Professor with Draper's Race Creepers. In second place, Graham, who Skylar was just mentioning, with Grimwatch. Mark Baconborn, North Beast showing up in force, taking all top three. Sounds like kind of I don't know if it's Pat the Glory or just Northeast affiliated, but they showed up in force, took the top three spots. So Mark Baconborn with Sepulchral Guard, and then Davey in fourth place with Thricefold Discord. Second, third, and fourth, all 4-1 and 0. So coming down to the tiebreakers, very tight determination there. But as far as I'm aware, Graham and Mark both have golden tickets. So Gerard, there was a moment there when the tournament was shaken out in round 5 where we're like mathing out how Davey could land a hand-me-down ticket, and did not pan out. So congratulations to Gerard. In fifth place, our own Zach Thomas with Headsman's Curse. Blake Law, cool to keep seeing him there. I played him 2 years ago for his first event in Underworlds. I'm happy every time I see him in the events. And then Guillaume, otherwise known as G, with his Crimson Court. Before I go through all 30, I'm just going to shout out our own or some other names. George from Pat the Glory at 14th place with Drum Gorchosen. And then in 15th place, our own Jacob Wellner, with his Exiled Dead. Craig Vieira, who won last year's Nova with Gnarl Spirit Pack. Or not, no. He won
Goonhammer Open.
Goonhammer Open. Yeah, that's right. He was at last year's Nova with Gnarl Spirit Pack. He won Goonhammer Open just now, and he won a ticket there. He had a record here. Craig's-Existential. Oh, a Dread Pageant player. Yay, Shadow. Love it. Gerard of Battle Mallet with Headcrackers Mad Mob in 18th place. And then Skylar 19th place with Skace Wild Hunt, a champion of the people with Skace Wild Hunt. Jake Bennington, Crimson Court, 21st place. And then Phil, 24th place with Skinnerkin. And then Battle Mallet with Sirenized Razors. Jake, one of their locals. And then Emmett, our own, in 29th place with Thunderix Profiteers, champion of the people, favorite choice.
And best hat winner.
Best hat winner.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. A very interesting spread, very interesting choice of warbands. Gerard with Death and a niche like pairing pick there. Draper's Wraith Creepers, Toxic Terrors after Adepticon, seeing George take it with Headsman's Curse and Deadly Depths. Death still haunting the meta. Very cool. I look forward to seeing. I've already listened to his Battle Mallet interview. I'm looking forward to the Path to Glory interview with him and how that deck performed. But that was just to give the listeners some context for how the tournament shook out. Very, very competitive meta here. North Beast, What the Hex, and Battle Mallet all out in force, along with plenty of other who are not affiliated. Some highlights and lowlights from Phil and Davey. Skylar, I believe you've had your chance to talk.
I will chill on the mic and enjoy the ride.
Enjoy. Start with Phil.
Sure. So I guess highlight for me, this is going to sound a little weird, but I guess there's technically kind of two. I actually, I wasn't super happy that I had to play Davey because it was like, man, we drove all this way. And Davey had already had to play against Emmett, which was like, man, this is really lame that he's having to play all these people from our local. But it was cool to have our match just where like we kind of already knew each other's game plans really well. We've practiced against each other and it was like, all right, final test between the two of us here. Who's going to take it? And there were some funny moments, at least I thought they were a little funny, where like Davey's luck was really going against him. And it was just like looking at the scores and the board state, I was like, I think you're still got this. Like, I think you're doing fine. And as it turned out, he did. He ended up winning our match, but it did have to go to 3. And it was just one of those where it was like, you know, wanting to be like teammate cheerleader, being like, no, you got this. But also it's like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I do want him to just like fall apart. But it was fun regardless. It was a really, really tightly contested match. I think it was the closest match that I had the whole day. And then the other one was just being able to make Mark sweat a little bit in the games against his Sepulchral Guard. I've only played a couple games against Sepulchral Guard with Skinnerkin, but I knew Mark's a really smart player. He plays a lot of really good hold objective strategies, and so I knew this was probably not a good sign when I was matched up into him in such an early round. But I was able to take a game off of him, was able to make for a pretty close in the losses as well, and it was just fun to be like, okay, I know what your game plan is. You probably kind of know what my game plan is, and like trying to like counter each other's moves and like keep him off objectives and still get haunches. And that was really fun. I think, I don't know if I would necessarily say there was like a low light necessarily, except maybe just that, at least for me, I had expected there to be such a heavy emphasis on aggro, and I knew Skinnerkin had strong matchups into aggro, but I knew that Skinnerkin really struggled into like standoffish control play. And what did we see a ton of at this tournament? Standoffish hold objective control play. And it was like pretty prevalent. Like we had a lot of Rhymelock relics. We had Grimwash, Sepulchral Guard, George's Drum were playing a hold control build, and it was just like, man, this is such a far cry from what I was expecting the meta to look like that I felt very unprepared and ended up not doing very well. I think partially because of it. I was expecting everyone to just kind of like run at you and try and smack your face, and that was not what the tournament that I got at all.
Yeah, our Q3 event, the FAQ dropped, and FAQ and errata dropped before our Q3 event, which had a lot of big changes to Rhymeworm's Bite and Breakneck Slaughter, in particular, in this case with the aggro expectations. And the pivot to Rhyme Locked Relics, something you guys were mentioning a lot.
Yeah.
A deck that I've been enjoying, and nice to see it buff. The Achilles heel of Hungering Parasite due to Rhyme Locking it is, I think it showed up. I didn't hear a whole lot of Hungering Parasite at the event.
It was basically non-existent. There was
I think there were two
decks.
Yeah. I think that was it. I mean, I think there was a major thought that like, hey, Hungering Parasite's going to be out there. And so then a lot of people looked at Rhyme Locked. And if you're looking at Rhyme Locked, then you're more likely to bring something like Sepulchral Guard or Grimwatch or I guess Drum. And so I think that like the picking against what was expected, like really kind of skewed what we saw, which was that made for interesting.
Yeah, it's always fascinating how the meta waxes and wanes and adapts, and like we felt very meta like aggro, and then now we're in a hold control, which I wouldn't expect that pivot.
Yeah.
But Davey, the Tale of Fratricide.
Yeah. I honestly, this is a little bit of a low point. So I rolled right into I played Tony Kopak in the first round, and he was running Sepulchral Guard, and I was like, oh, this is a problem because we just haven't had somebody playing it at like a super high.
It's a bit of a blind spot in our meta.
Yeah, and I knew it going in. I was like, I know I'm not in a good spot. And so there were some literally like there were some objectives there he had to score them before I was like, oh, okay. Now I remember that you have a surge for holding 6 glory, 6 points of objective tokens or whatever. And I made some atrocious decisions in there. Like I thought I had the kill shot on this, the warden, and he had put a wound upgrade on him, and so like I ruined an entire round going at. So the first round was a train wreck. The second round was much closer, and I could have taken it if I'd played smarter. And I just was like, I attribute some of it to I really had fun playing all the board game stuff, but I did not think about Underworlds for like the 48 hours preceding or whatever. And so it was like grinding gears to get back in the swing of things. And then I wasn't saying that was a little, I kept my head in that one, but I was just disappointed with my, just how I played that basically. And then I played Emmett, and then I played Phil, and then I played Wellner. So I was like, I think my lowest was against Phil. Like I'd lost round 1, I'd played my son in round 2. Then I was playing my long-time podcast co-host in the third. And the first one, I was just like nothing was working. And in the second game of that, so I'd gotten kind of blown out. In the second one, it was still close. And I remember more than once telling Phil, like, I'm sorry. I'm going to try and keep my head up. I'm going to try and like stay in this. And I think one of the times I literally said like, all right, I'm going to really like keep my chin up. And the very next thing I did was to charge Lasavir on who had one, not Lasavir, Vastus, who had 1 health. I was like, I'll go for this perfect blade kill. And you reacted with Karnskir flew over the top and killed me. And I was like, oh my God. And I mean, it was a thing, like, even if you didn't get the ping, you were going to push me away. I'd be out of range. Like it was a unequivocally terrible play on my part where I just missed this. And even the first play of that game of the entire match, I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that he can't get Unwitting Guardians as he moves into my territory. I'm going to walk onto this objective. And you're like, okay, well, I'll reshaping snare you. I'm like, oh my God, what is happening?
Yeah.
So I appreciated that you didn't hold that against me too much, because I was kind of down in the dumps on that. And then we did have like an incredibly tight game 2, as close a game as we've ever had. I think it was decided by a single glory at one point. And then got that game 3, went on to play Wellner, and that was also weird because we had neither a highlight or a low light, but a weird light, I guess, because in our first game of the 3, at the end of round 3, at the end of round 2, end phase scoring, the score was 2 glory to me, 0 glory to Wellner, and it was like, it wasn't that I was standing in the back of the board doing control stuff. We were fairly entangled and nobody could hit anything. Wellner was kind of like tilting pretty hard. He's like, I can't believe I can't even hit like 1. And I was like, man, I'm with you. Like I've got Lasavir like going for grievous attacks on, just standing next to Daintalos being like, why won't you die? So we're both doing that. So it was, I think that game ended 7 glory to 4. And the next game, he ended up conceding at like 6-0, which were wildly different than our games at Q3. I also played Phil and Wellner in Q3.
Yeah,
so
it's just, man, some rough luck there.
Yeah, just kind of a bummer. And you go and you want to be like, yeah, I kind of earned this record. And I was like, I earned it playing the people I always play. I didn't play. I had a really tough game against Oliver, and echo a lot of things that Skylar said. It was a very quiet, thoughtful game, and that was another one where I played it pretty. Like I thought I knew what I needed to do, or I thought I could like push past some of the things, and he smoked me in game 1. I didn't adjust in game 2. I was losing that desperately, and then he made a wrong choice, and I was able to play like run away, keep Rippo alive, kill everybody else, and then Triumph of Paramountcy to kind of push me ahead. Like at the end, I think I had corralled like sheep, Paramountcy, and another. So it was a big like 6 glory end phase. So that felt pretty good. And we both looked at each other at the end of that one. We're like, well, we clearly don't have time for. I guess we're just going to call this a draw for this round. Like we really took a long time. And Judge went by and said, "You got 30 minutes," and it was like you can almost see both of our shoulders fall. Like, oh my god, I guess we got to do this.
Guess I have to play another game of Underworlds today.
But there, it was a highlight for me is I made an adjustment on the fly. I was like, you know what? I keep one particular objective is get moving. I was like, I keep on, because it's so automatic, I keep on being like, yes, I will score this. And I was like, but what if I don't? Like, what if I have it in my opening hand and I just sit on it, like wait for it, reduce my scoring for this first round, but really reduce his and force him in. And so I like traded board state for glory. And that was it. Like that game, I also had much better luck than Oliver in that one. Certainly than how some of the other ones turned out. And but that was enough to get me into a spot where I was like, all right, it's a game. Like I spent most of that game being like, I feel pretty in control of this. Like there's some ways it can go bad, but it's not always that you can make an on-the-fly adjustment. Sometimes that on-the-fly adjustment is exactly wrong. Like Skylar was talking about, like, oh, you know what? I think if I, like, couldn't quite decide who's going first against the Grimwatch or whatever, like you. So it was rewarding to have that. But again, a big highlight for me is I was super worried that Emmett was just gonna like, really get kind of rushed and hurried and then get beat up all day long. But he was smiling after those, and because some of the Battle Mallet guys were, Gerard was playing, but Jason was in and out of the mix, and so he was like, "Hey, like it just made my day." Like Emmett came bouncing up to me with a grin ear to ear, and I was like, "Oh, I haven't even seen him yet." Like you knew before I did how that round went. So I was just really happy, really relieved about that. And then a good sign is that he and I split off from you so we could go to the pool. So when we were going to dinner that night, it was just the two of us, and he was already thinking about what he wanted to play next. So he read through Sleek's Bowl's Black Spot article twice because he really wanted to do Black Powder.
Yeah. So
keeping it on the hard train.
Yeah.
That is awesome. He's going to be a prodigy one day and beat us all.
Especially when he takes off the training weights. Right.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, it's unfortunate to travel and play some of the people we played locally. It's both a, like, wonderful problem to have because we have such an awesome local, and many of them are willing to travel with us. So we bring that with. I'm glad that Best Coast Pairing gives you the option to have a team name so that you don't get paired at least in round one, so you get to meet some new people. But a lot of the fun of going to these cons is encountering these names and these characters that you kind of know from online Discord or just discourse about the game, and being able to match your wits and your skills in the game against those people. So sorry that you again had to fratricide against many of us. LVO, you had quite a run up, but you had a very challenging run up to fourth place. It was stiff competition. Sounds like a great time. Everybody sounded like, round timers pressing and reducing the amount of interaction was the biggest low light. So otherwise, I'd say that's a win. There wasn't any big controversy, which is great. So with any final thoughts before we go to the outro? Hearing none. So that'll be it for us and the Nova Open Convention 2024. You can reach us at whatthehexcast and whatthehexcast@gmail.com. Check us out. Check out all of our other content at themortalrealms.com, greater podcast network that we are part of and privileged to be a part of. Coming up next, new release when, the burning question that won't get answered, but plenty of happening here.
Well,
so
but Brian, there's plenty happening here.
Plenty happening here.
You know what? There is a shout out that I think each of us had talked about wanting to make that we're failing to do so. So here it is. Jonathan.
Yes, you took it. I was like, I actually started doing that and realized my mic was muted when Brian was asking for things. So I'm glad you got there.
Awesome. Yeah. So we posted, Davey posted on our Discord and was like, hey, we're going to be doing Blood in the Clock Tower tonight. Come find us. Here's where we're going to be. And he took us up on it. And it was a splendid time lying to your face and murdering all of your friends.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time heaping some well-deserved praise on the Battle Mallet guys, but it really was a great crew. Jake and his wife Mary, Jonathan. Like it was awesome how many smiling faces and again, just to come back to it, that a number of Emmett's opponents came up to me and were like, there's every possibility. I was like, maybe people are going to be like annoyed about having to play a kid, and everyone was super cool about it. So, just the crew as a whole was awesome.
In a weekend of great moments, it's hard to pick a favorite, but I can't stop thinking about how much fun we had playing Blood on the Clock Tower with Battle Mallet, with Jake and Mary, with Jonathan, and the people from the night before.
Danny standing up and dramatically leaning into his role. That was super awesome.
It was so good. Thank you all it was just a splendid time. Yeah, and sorry about the trust issues.
Yes, come meet your podcasters. Let them stab you in the back. Deception and betrayal. Good times. Awesome. It was fun at LVO. I'm sure it was fun there. I hope we'll be able to do something similar. I missed out on Blood on the Clock Tower at Adepticon.
Right.
Yeah, I had my
Sir
own
Titanicus.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes. I've landed another sort of responsibility. I actually had some agents at Nova playing in the Titanicus event there and taking notes, trying to run my own event, or I've taken the reins of an event at Adepticon. So if you have a Titan, tune in. I'll shout it out at some point.
Maybe no better time to say, take a look at Adepticon. Come see us there.
Yeah. The hotel registration is already up. I'm sure the hotel blocks are full, but there's plenty of hotels around the convention center. And despite everybody saying, "Oh, it's moved north, it's going to be even colder," it's not that big of a difference. Like,
yeah, really,
yeah,
not
2
even a
hours
little
north. You're not gonna.
Yeah, you're not going to freeze off. We went to Calgary and we survived. All right, so New release when? I'd put my money on the first week of October. But who's putting their money on that? Who put that?
I was saying if we were to take bets as to an announcement of when we might see something new, I'm just thinking at this point it's got to be like first week of October, because that's usually when the new season, like the new, not season box, but like the next big box usually drops around then.
Yeah.
And since we haven't seen anything else, I'm just going to say, I think October, early October, we'll get an announcement that like, hey, here's your new box. Maybe
Typical
with
patterns would say, yeah.
yeah, and then maybe with all the missing releases that we've had, so maybe we'll be super crazy busy as podcasters.
No.
Previous patterns would also say that the end of a season releases at the beginning of the new season.
I'm laughing on the outside, but I'm crying on the inside.
For sure.
I have here Death Gorge was October 21st. Gnarlwood was October 29th. Harrow Deep, October 23rd.
This is what I'm saying.
Nerd.
Yeah.
He's our chronicler. Uber Amos, if you read Eisenhorn.
All right. Play that with pride. Aw.
So, Davey, do you have a flavor text quiz for us?
I do. I don't think you need my usual bevy of hints, but we'll see. If I get crickets right away, I'll throw some stuff at you. This is an unattributed quote. Conquer the cold, conquer the self, conquer the land.
Oh,
So this is Rhymelock Relics.
definitely.
Correct.
And
Could it
is it?
be Frozen Solid?
It is
No.
not Frozen Solid.
No.
Okay.
What's the?
Icebound Defenders.
Not that.
What?
It is an objective.
Yeah, it's Oh no, the name. Guys, it's hold more and have more
Cold Front.
wounded. Cold Front. It's got to be.
It is not. It is.
He normally goes.
Winter-
He would normally go with a title that's going to be attributed to like the context of the episode. So I'm struggling to come up with something that would match that.
It was a little tough. I went with Wintry Conquest. This is a tip of the hat to Gerard, who had to defeat a field of Rhymelock relics to get there.
There you go. There you go. That
Very
makes
nice.
sense.
I have a recommended listening for you, and this is from the band Calexico, and it is Ritual Roadmap, and that's a tip of the hat for a road trip.
Nice.
Very nice.
All right, that's it for What the Hex. I've been your host, Brian.
I've been Davey.
I've been Phil.
And I've been Skylar.
I've been Emmett.
Taking
Perfect.
up all of the
Yeah.
audio time. Emmett, finally get off the mic.
Jeez.
Skylar, I think I cut you off.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I think. Nope. You know what? I went active listener mode and jettisoned anything I had going on there.
Brain flush.
Defensive play to me.
Mark, I believe. So Gerard,
in your normally I'd hear a record stated with like win, loss, draw. So you're saying
win, loss, draw. Okay.
Okay.
I'll redo that then.
All right.
And then Gerard from the Battle Mallet having a 1-3-0 record, or 1-3-1 record. Potato. Blooper reel, please.
Well,
And then-
so he had how many draws?
Sorry.
Yeah.
He had a 1-3-1 record. And then
Is it
correct?
still correct? He had three
Gerard,
draws.
Battle Mallet? Yeah.
Didn't he 3 draw? So that'd be the last number.
1, 1, and 3.
Oh my god. Blooper reel high. He
I was like, 1, 3, and 1 is wrong. Let me take another run at that. 1, 3,
I
and
am-
1.
I am trying to decipher a record that says 3-1-1-1-0. So I am discombobulating it with
Sure.
those interpretations. So
Yeah.